The Department of Science and Technology, in partnership with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, is currently developing a long-term implementation roadmap for information and communications technology research, development and innovation. In the meantime, a new private satellite broadband internet service has recently been launched in South Africa. This new product is expected to provide broadband internet to business and communities in rural areas. For more about the importance of affordable and available broadband internet in rural development, we're talking to the Internet Service Providers Association's regulatory advisor, Dominic Cull. Dominic, good morning and thank you for joining us on AgriTV.
Morning, Daba. My pleasure.
What is broadband internet and how does it differ from the internet you get from a telephone line or from your cell phone?
Broadband's a lot like water delivery to rural areas, for example. It used to be that we would rely on the rain and we'd store the rain, but the rain was sporadic. You couldn't predict when it was going to be there. It didn't fulfill all your needs at once. Increasingly, however, we're getting water piped into areas. The bigger the pipe, the more water you have, the more it changes what you can do on your rural land, so you can develop it for different purposes. Broadband is exactly the same, whether you're getting it through your mobile phone, satellite, your telephone line, or underground cables. Broadband is about how big that pipe is and how much you can access through it.
Now, in rural areas, the quality of broadband also plays a critical role. But how important is for this quality to be affordable to people in rural areas?
In South Africa, we don't really have an access problem. So there is coverage over 90-something% of the country. We have an affordability problem. So for many in rural areas, their only access to the internet is through 3G, through their mobile networks or through satellite. And unfortunately, at this stage, that's very expensive.
Now, in terms of usage, consumption, how are we compared to what other guys internationally are doing?
We are somewhere in the middle. The concern is that we've been moving backwards in recent times, and that government certainly recognized that and is putting turnaround strategies in place to ensure that we start to take our place rightfully where we should be. We need to bear in mind that South Africa is the 25th biggest country in the world by landmass. It's not easy to connect everyone up in an area which is quite so big. And it's not that so much that we're moving backwards, it's that we're not moving forwards as quickly as others might be.
Well, there's a willingness, there's been moves to make sure that broadband internet services are available widely in South Africa. But however, it's taking quite a long time. Why is it taking so long?
Traditionally, it has cost a lot of money. The good news is that we're talking about technology, and technology moves on at an incredible pace. So while we're talking about the challenges of broadband in rural areas, previously we would have been talking about the challenges of getting radio and television signals to those areas. The technology doesn't wait for government policy, the technology doesn't wait for the private sector, it develops and it creates opportunities by itself.
How does the fact that people in rural areas can't afford broadband internet impact on their businesses?
It's massive. You're being left behind, and I think it's particularly felt amongst the youth in those areas and where we know there is a massive underemployment challenge. Now, where you have broadband, you have economic opportunity, giving people the opportunities to stay in rural areas so that they're not forced to move to urban areas to look for opportunities. If I can access the internet using a broadband connection, I am able to do all sorts of things. I'm able to get information about what markets are doing, about what prices are doing, about what the best methods are, for example, to farm a particular crop, which are being researched all over the world.
What can private sector and government do to intervene, particularly on the affordability issue?
Government is doing a lot in this area, and particularly around community broadcasting. That is a matter which is extremely close to the Department of Communications' heart and to the ANC's heart in terms of the relevant substructures. We do have a draft rural development ICT strategy which falls within the greater policy context of creating jobs and development in rural areas. That will be hopefully finalized later this year. The private sector is developing at an incredibly fast rate. So, from your big guys, your MTNs, your Vodacoms, your Telcoms, they're bringing out new products, they're lowering their prices, they're increasing their coverage. And we've seen an incredible number of small, what they call wireless internet service providers, or WISPs, which are springing up not as a national company, but are springing up out of communities. they're either starting their own businesses and saying, look, this is not impossible to do. We can set up towers. We can give ourselves access. We can use what's called license-exempt frequency, which is very inexpensive. And doing that, we can address our security concerns, our education concerns, our development concerns. Or we can engage with a number of these small rural operators. There's a particular organization called the Wireless Access Providers Association, which specializes in those kind of rural operations. And we can go to that organization and say, well, here are GPS coordinates. Is there anyone with coverage? If yes, fantastic. If no, then get people together. Get the local government involved, get the farming community involved, get the educators involved, and create the demand and say, we want the coverage. If you can create that demand in today's age and with the technology that's available, someone will come and provide that service.
And if you want more information on how to set up a broadband internet service in your area, give us a call on our hotline, 011-791-5658. We'll connect you with Dominic and he'll give you the details of how you can go about it. Dominic, thank you for joining us this morning.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, Tauba.